Today in our panel, we have Nikhil Balaraman, who is co-head Telecom and Technology CDC Group. Then Rohan Shanta, who is General Manager, E-commerce, Parcel Business and Vice President, Sales Delivery. Then we have Varsha Bansal, Senior Editor, startups and have been part of Intracker team. And then we have Varun Lal, Private Equity Special Situations, InvestCorp. I will now invite Varsha, who will be moderating the panel discussion. Over to you, Varsha.
Hi, Mukesh. Thank you so much. So great. Let's start the panel discussion with the first question. If we can, talk. This question is for the entire panel. I'm just throwing it out there. How do you think new age logistics and tech has disrupted e-commerce, and how do you think it has enabled growth of e-commerce? Maybe Varun, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Varsha. Good afternoon, everyone, and hi to my co-panelists. I think this was something that Mukesh covered pretty well in his presentation, so I'll keep my comments to a brief. Look, if you look at logistics, and then if you sort of weigh in the e-commerce dynamics, logistics is one of the most important drivers of customer experience as far as an e-commerce business is concerned, right? Therefore, combined with payments, these two have been the pillars on which I guess India's e-commerce business has been built, the entire market that is developed. And if I were to again use the framework that Redseer kind of put out in their note along the lines of coverage, efficiency, cost as the three most important drivers for any logistics business or any e-commerce focused logistics business, when e-commerce took root in India in 2011, 2012, with the advent of Amazon and Flipkart in the reverse order, pretty much the incumbent platforms were incapable of catering to a business that was essentially high volume, low AOV, and required a certain speed of delivery, right? And that's where I think the e-commerce logistics players have stepped in and allowed an industry to be created. I think their contribution can broadly be summarized on two pillars, right? One is the fact that they invested technology and capital behind covering the infrastructure gap. So, prior to the new age logistics companies coming, we didn't have the right fulfillment centers. We didn't have the sortation hubs. All those things that you saw in the presentation just before that in terms of automation was not there. And I think the second is the product innovation that has been done by these players to meet the requirements of e-commerce, right? Whether it is cash on delivery, reverse logistics, dealing with incomplete addresses as far as India is concerned, making sure you can deliver to your neighbors, OTP-based authentication. I mean, these are all, innovations that have allowed the e-commerce industry to kind of flourish. So I'll pause there and just end by saying that, if it weren't for e-commerce logistics, you wouldn't really have the e-commerce business scaling to the levels or being able to drive penetration that we have today and what we portend for the future.
Thank you so much for that. Nikhil, do you want to take over?
Sure. Thanks, Varsha, and glad to be on the panel. I don't have anything fantastic to add to the points that Varun raised and Mukesh covered in his presentation. But look, if you were to just summarize that, I think the biggest movement that's happened is that new age logistics businesses have solved for inefficiencies in the existing system, and they've reduced costs in the existing supply chain. In the presentation before the panel, there was a slide which talked about logistics expenses amounting to 13 to 14% of GDP in India. And so it's inefficient by 4 to 5% compared to economies like the US and Europe and countries in Europe, which are probably at 8-10% of GDP in logistics costs. So if you look at the absolute numbers, these are big numbers. I mean, this is around $100 billion of just inefficiency in the logistics system. So my simple argument is the opportunity for e-logistics is massive, will remain massive just by solving for these inefficiencies. The second part is e-logistics companies have improved access, and they've also they're also providing specific services to customers, both the B2B customers and end consumers. If you look at the numbers, I think Blue Dart, for example, reaches around, I don't know, 14, 15,000 pin codes. Gati reaches around 20,000 pin codes in India. But companies like Delivery and Ecom Express are at a similar level and growing faster. We have Rohan on the panel who can talk about this much better than I can. So they have similar reach, growing faster, and they also offer specific services like fulfillment, return logistics, cash handling, some of the stuff that Varun brought up earlier, apart from the traditional air, surface express services. Right? The third thing I think they've done is democratize supply. Again, we covered this in the presentation earlier. 60% of e-commerce shipments, I think, in India relate to the large horizontal retailers such as Amazon and Flipkart, out of which only 24% is outsourced. The remaining 40% relate to a long tail of providers, out of which the reverse number is outsourced, right? So 3/4 of that is outsourced. So this may include companies like, I don't know, Nykaa or Xiaomi and so on. So that is a massive opportunity as well. So catering to some of these new providers, new suppliers, new vendors, new brands, I think is the other thing that 3PL providers and eLogistics companies have done. There's obviously a deep degree of innovation required to deliver all this. But this innovation mindset is where new age logistics really scores over traditional logistics. I'll stop there, Varsha. I didn't have anything else to say.
Great, thank you so much, Nikhil. And as you mentioned, Rohan being on the panel, he would, if you can add more to that, Rohan, from Delivery's perspective and even overall industry perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, pleasure to be on the panel with the group. So thank you for having me. I think most of it has been said. I mean, I'll just cut this up into a couple of different trends that we see, right? One of the points was about the large platforms, and then there is the D2C part, but I also think there is the new business models that are existing, like the Meesho, social commerce, content buying. Think of it as Facebook and a buy button, right? So new models are there and they're going to keep coming, and that'll maintain a balance between the large players and a mid-tier and a long tail. When it comes to cost, I think a lot of these points have been covered. The sortation is a big, automation and sortation is a big thing. I think two other areas where the costs are getting optimized, and one is in the line haul, where infrastructure in the country is improving, and better quality vehicles are there, right? So we've gone and invested in Volvo 42-inch trailers, 42-foot trailers, and that's made a difference. The last part, which is the last mile cost, which is a global problem, because that tends to be the highest cost. I think especially in India, there are opportunities in just optimizing routes, right? Using information that you have on going to an office at a particular time and making sure you break the drops there before you go to the residential address, or certain residential addresses we know have a better opportunity to make a delivery before a particular time or after a particular time, and making sure you use the data to drive that. So that's where the data and last mile cost logistics can make a big difference. Apart from that, there are tech areas where I see opportunities, right? So I think we've spoken about RTO prediction and reducing RTOs. There is the issue with quality of address. The third part that I feel where customer experience can really change is that the post-purchase experience right now is fairly untapped. There's a lot of effort in customer acquisition and reducing friction when you're making a transaction. After that, what happens is that the relationship bifurcates, where you have a payment provider, you have a logistics provider, you have the platform that made the sale, and the consumer. Trying to integrate that and creating a kind of a homogeneous platform or a solution where a consumer can reach out to the brand or the platform, but work with the logistics player to solve whatever concern they have, that can really, in my opinion, bring in the next wave of customer experience. And when you bring that better customer experience, then you create that flywheel that everybody will talk about of keeping people back onto the platform. Your customer lifetime value then improves. And I think that's an untapped area where technology, partnerships will all come together.
Great, Rohan. Thank you so much for that. Painted a really great picture of what can be expected. Yeah, let's move on to Varun. And you mentioned D2C brands. How do you think e-commerce can further help D2C brands in the future? Right now, they've really enabled the delivery of these brands, and how do you see that going further? If you can talk about that, Varun.
Sure, Varsha. Look, I think first I must start by saying that D2C brands probably represents one of the most exciting opportunities as far as India is concerned, right? I think in the next decade or two, we're going to see an emergence of a multitude of brands. And I think this is just an explosion that is waiting to happen. And again, the categories are kind of known to all, right? I mean, I think whether it's beauty, fashion, lifestyle, food, I think there's a huge opportunity because India has been an under-branded market as far as these categories are concerned. And for us at InvestCorp, this is a pretty interesting dynamic. We are invested in D2C brands, whether it is Bevacoop, which is a leading apparel brand, or Fresh to Home, which is a leading meat and seafood business. And we're invested on the eLogistics side as well. And we actually kind of see how fulfillment and delivery is almost a pretty important determinant of competitive advantage. If you're a young emerging brand, you need to be able to get to your consumers much faster. You need to be able to give them that customer experience. And like Rohan mentioned about the whole post-purchase experience and how that's really to get to your consumer faster and being able to communicate with them, right? And the e-logistics providers are actually a huge enabler as far as D2C is concerned. Let's talk about what they do today, and then maybe we can talk about what the future potentially holds, right? Today, I think the whole services are predominantly on two pillars, right? One is if you're a D2C brand, there is an entire dropship model. You manufacture at your from your point of manufacture to the last mile, right? It's all taken care by the logistics provider. We've got the names of delivery, e-com, express Bs. So from your manufacture point right to the customer, it's complete solution in a box, right? The other area where I think if you have a D2C brand that is now increasingly going omni-channel, that's again an area where the e-logistics players make a huge impact, because running omni-channel, which is basically both online as well as online operations, is not an easy task, right? And to be able to seamlessly integrate these operations is not easy for the younger companies. Obviously, a lot of the larger companies are slowly discovering it themselves and are facing problems. So you can imagine what some of the younger companies go through. So I think when it comes to agility and when it comes to being able to deliver the right experience to your consumers and making sure that whatever they've ordered is available to them at the right time, it becomes pretty critical. Also, I think what is important for the D2C brands and should not be ignored is the entire cost of delivery. If you look at any D2C brand's P&L, the delivery costs are, besides, of course, what they spend on customer acquisition and brand building, the fulfillment and servicing cost is a pretty significant component, right? And if you were to sort of apply the traditional models there, it would be very hard for some of these D2C brands to scale. That's where I think the huge impact of the tech-enabled solutions has kind of come into the picture, right? I think going forward, and I'm sure Rohan and Nikhil will probably subscribe to this, if India has to see a proliferation of D2C brands, what really needs to happen, and I think all the e-logistics companies are working towards that, is an ability to offer them a complete solution in a box. So it's almost like a brand is born. They have to focus on the core task of customer acquisition and marketing and brand building. When it comes to fulfillment, it's just a plug and play solution, right? So which means you've got the entire infra sorted out. You've got the entire technology pack available. You've got the entire inventory movement and the inventory storage done. So whether it's the use of distributed inventory or micro warehouses, or whether it is the right fulfillment centers or the location of the sorting hubs. I think we need our e-logistics companies to come in and offer a complete solution in a box, right? Saying, okay, here's the software, you plug into my platform, and depending on the zip codes or pin codes you want to deliver to, this is what it is going to cost you. We'll take over of the entire 4PL operations, if I can say, right from planning to storage, movement, and final delivery, right? I mean, I'll stop here because I think there was a lot to cover, but I think the combination of D2C and e-logistics is a pretty interesting theme going forward.
Thank you so much, Varun. So plug and play for the D2C brands. Rohan, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Varun's hit the nail on the head out here. When we looked at some of the data on D2C brands, right, and what they promise on their website, as an example, is they'll say delivery. If you buy on my platform, you can get a shipment between 7 to 10 days. That same product is available on a platform with a 2 to 3 day delivery. So there's a lot of money spent trying to acquire a customer. When the customer gets on your website, thinks about buying it, says, hang on, it's going to take me 2 to 3 times longer. I may as well go buy it from the e-commerce platform, right? So you've lost the customer, the data of the customer, you spend money on the customer acquisition cost. So that's something that does need to change. And I can talk about, I'll build on what Varun said in terms of solution. The other thing that we have seen, and I'm talking about data from say 2016 to 2021, if I look at the volume of shipments that are now available going into say a tier 3, tier 4, 60-70% of the volume, right, is there. So we've seen a jump quite a bit from what we used to get as shipments going into a tier 3, tier 4 was about, say, in the 40s, now it's about 70%, right? So a lot of shipments are moving there. And so when you start getting so much volume there, you're also getting scale, you're getting better economics, you're getting better reach. Now, when you put those two together and you say, hey, look, the consumer wants things faster, okay? And you can reach a lot of customers because of the reach of the logistics players. How do you create a solution in a box, as Varun mentioned? So we have something called Fulfill by Delivery, right? So it's basically we have an FC business where you can forward deploy your inventory. We have the last mile solution to it. And I think a critical point that he mentioned is you need the software so that the D2C player can take all orders and kind of manage all order fulfillment, OMS, WMS integration. And that's one of the solutions that we have. And we think that this is going to enable D2C brands to start controlling a lot more of their conversations with their consumers. Right now, it goes a lot through platforms and they lose that relationship. Bringing that relationship back will be a significant advantage to them as they think about growth and new category launches.
Great, thank you so much, Rohan. And the theme seems to be speed, right? So let's move on to talking to Nikhil. This question is for you, Nikhil. Speed of delivery has been the theme that has been, a part of e-commerce and logistics for the longest time. What kind of themes do you see emerging over the next decade with respect to e-logistics? What do you think customers would want?
Sure. I think a decade is a very long time, so let me sort of make it more real by bringing it closer, maybe the next few years. In my view, speed of delivery actually seems a bit narrow. I think convenience is more important, and probably that's what we are looking for in terms of what logistics providers should bring to the table. I don't think consumers necessarily want orders to be delivered always in the shortest time. I think they want convenience, one aspect of which may be speed. So convenience, I think, will continue to remain number one in all ways. Now, whether it's a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 city, wherever you're going. So I think convenience remains number one. And I think more immediately what's on everyone's minds, of course, is in the COVID and the post-COVID era. I think topics such as safety and hygiene protocols, contactless delivery and payment, all of this will take precedence. So approaches to delivery, I think, need to keep all of these in mind. For example, if you have to deliver a mobile phone in a small town, how do you ensure that the consumer receives delivery of the package and makes the payment in a contactless way. Maybe no cash on delivery, right? So I think one needs to plan, work, and create solutions for the post-COVID or even the COVID era right now. I think a third aspect, which I think is gaining more and more importance, is environment related, if you ask me. More and more stakeholders, whether it's consumers, employees, investors, are recognizing the importance of building a sustainable business, which is conducive to the environment. So I think eLogistics companies need to work with their B2B customers on this aspect, maybe prioritize this over just pure unbridled customer delight. Some easier wins I can think of include maybe use of more renewable energy efficient solutions in fulfilling the order, which may lead to lower fulfillment costs as well. And following the principle of the 3 R's, for example, reduce, reuse, recycle, which may lower packaging costs. So all of this, I think, has a direct impact on costs as well. But I think as a theme, I see this gaining more and more prominence. I see more consumers, more stakeholders, I think, focusing on environment related aspects as well.
Great, Nikhil. Very interesting points, especially about the environment. Varun, Rohan, one of you want to go next on this? Anything to add?
I think I can build on this. I think the point on environment is definitely a solid one. I think there are a couple of factors. One is if you think of the larger international, the Amazon and say Flipkart, Walmart, they have probably set goals of a 2030, 2040 carbon neutral kind of ambition. So that is going to be translated to their ecosystem, which would involve the third-party logistics players. I think that's one thing. I think consumers are also, they want organic products. They want to recognize with brands that are more sustainable. And so that's also going to put, questions to third-party logistics companies to what can we do. And like I was saying, we moved to getting onto Volvo because we think it's more environmentally friendly. I think in last mile, EV vehicles are being tried and tested. And I think they have an opportunity to kind of bring a little bit more to the equation. So I think that's, environment is definitely going to be a big thing. And if I take a five-year view out here, I think the convenience point is spot on. I think the other thing in my mind is the returns experience. This came up in the presentation. I think Varun kind of mentioned in the beginning. I think that's something that has an opportunity to really be streamlined and improved from, think about it as you'd return a product as a consumer, how fast do you get your money back? Something as simple and basic as that. How do you make that as a uniform solution that can keep the consumer experience up there, right? So I think that's one other area that I think can be renovated.
Varsha, just one other point I would sort of want to add, right? And I think it's something that tends to get overlooked about the contribution of the e-logistics companies, right? And pertains a lot to, building sustainable and responsible businesses, is the fact that this is one of the largest employment generators in the country. I mean, if you look at the kind of jobs the number of jobs that have been added in the last, call it decade or so by the new age logistics companies, there's been a significant contribution. And without exception, each of these companies has actually taken the lead in adding women to the workforce. So in my experience, it's one of those rare sectors where women employees are upwards of 20-25% of the total employee base present, including last mile delivery people. This is a very counterintuitive notion, but including last mile delivery, you have a very high percentage of women who are, part of the workforce. And in terms of, I think the work being done with respect to safety of the employees, hygiene, responsibility towards the environment. Again, I think the new age logistics companies have really kind of taken a lead because they are, again, one of the largest consumers of packaging material. It's a fact that tends to get overlooked, and Nikhil brought it up. So I think the contribution of this sector towards actually sort of building the nation and contributing towards jobs is something that we can't really trivialize.
Great, thank you so much, Varun. Very interesting points. I know we're running out of time, so I'll just check. Are we taking external questions, Mukesh?
No, Varsha, we won't be taking external questions.
Great. So thank you so much, guys, for this. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.